So right now we're seeing a record number of people not making their car payments here in the car market. And these numbers that we're seeing are just the tip of the iceberg. Those people that are dealing with this situation right now, that's so funny. That's so funny. That loud car you just heard, that loud car you just heard was a Charger. That dude right there has negative equity on his car of like $10,000, $20,000 because of this crash. And if we dig a little deeper, it's way worse than the numbers would actually suggest. All right, so let's think about this for a moment. We are at record numbers of auto loan delinquencies right now. We have repos that are through the roof. And we look at these record numbers that we're talking about, and it's worse right now than it was back during the Great Financial Recession. And here's the thing. Let's think about what was going on during that time. We had people who were losing their houses. We had companies that were going bankrupt. We had mass layoffs going through the whole economic system. And during that time period, okay, people couldn't make their car payments because they were losing their jobs. But even right now, where the economy on paper actually looks like it's doing pretty good, we are worse right now for auto loan delinquencies than we were back then. So here's the thing. Things are not as good as they actually appear. And this is all we've been talking about for the last few years about this K-shaped recovery, where yes, the economy can look good on paper. People can be spending money that actually have money, but the lower end of the spectrum of this economy that we're living in is absolutely getting destroyed. And we can see this in the auto market. I can see it here at my used car dealership. So cars that are $5,000 and under, there are big time problems under the surface of this economy, and we can see it through the car market. Auto loan delinquencies are at record highs, even worse than this massive disaster that we had in our economy back in 2008. It's worse right now than it was then. And one way I can really know the severity of how the economy and how the lower end of the spectrum is actually being affected here in our economic system is because of like just the customers that I see, the questions that I get asked about these cars that I sell for $3,000, for $3,500. Our number one question that we're getting right now, and it's very frequent, it's 2 or 3 times a day that we get it, is that somebody will call on a $3,000 car and say, okay, well, I want to buy this car. How much do I need to put down to be able to buy this vehicle? Here's the thing. We don't finance here at my car dealership. You see all these cars that are up here, the $3,000, the $3,500 cars. They all say cash under them. And that's because not necessarily that someone has to pay me hard cash for these vehicles. It's just a term in the car market, meaning you have to buy the car outright. I sell these cars. I don't like debt. I don't want people to take on debt to be able to buy my vehicles. But still, even though we have cars that are cheap as $2,500, $3,000, we still get overwhelmed by people asking us how much down, how much a month for these cheap cars. And we say, okay, well, we don't finance, so you can't come and put $500, $1,000 down, whatever it would be for a car like this and make payments. But it's $3,000. You can come buy the car for $3,000 and that's it. They say, oh, well, okay, well, I don't have $3,000, so I'm going to need to look elsewhere. This is the problem that we see arising even here at my small car dealership. Little data sample, but it speaks volumes for where people are right now with their money. They don't have $500 even in their bank accounts right now to be able to save up for some kind of emergency, something that would happen in their life. They can't buy a $2,500 car for cash right now. This is a bad situation and a bad setup for our economy. And one phrase that's becoming very commonplace here in the market, and usually you would hear it from big banks who have lots of credit card customers. When delinquencies add up on credit cards, what they would say is, okay, well, extend and pretend. Okay, we know that there's an issue, but what we're going to do is we're just going to allow customers to continue to just make whatever payments they can. If they miss some payments, we'll just extend their loans out and we'll pretend that nothing's going on. Now we're starting to see a lot of this in the car market. It hasn't been long since I've seen numbers out of Carvana and CarMax where their auto loan delinquencies, just like every other bank that's running through this car market system right now, auto loan delinquencies spiking, going up. But their repo rates were not going up at the same rate as their auto loan delinquencies. And these two things should move at the same rate. You have people that are not making their payments. Auto loan delinquencies go up 60, 90 days, what we're seeing spiking, but you're not going to pick up the cars. So what is a place like CarMax and Carvana doing right now? Well, they're extending and they're pretending, because what do they not want to say? They don't want to say that R word, that repo crisis that we know that we're going to have to deal with, and we're just kind of kicking the can down the road. So what are they going to do? Well, they know that their shareholders would not like to see that. They know that they have to depend on a car market to be healthy for their stock price to continually go up. So no, they're not going to have this massive wave of repos. They're not going to go to their shareholders. They're not going to go out on these earning reports and say, okay, we have a lot of these cars. We got to go pick them up. We got to go pick them up now. American consumer is in is having a big time problem, and they just can't make their payments. Their stock prices would go down and go down in a very big way. So they're in the midst of this extending and pretending, and we're going to see that with a lot of these other banks. Happens with a lot of credit cards right now, a lot of people not making their payments. Same thing happening right now in the car market, where delinquencies spiking. Repo rates, though, not going up at the same rate. It's going to be a problem, kicking can down the road. It's a rubber band, stretch, stretch, stretch. At some point, what happens? It snaps. I gotta pull out my little note card here, because this I got a number that just blew me away. I'll sit at my counter when I'm going over and writing my little note card of notes when I'm going through the data and showing you guys like what I think is interesting for you to know. And this was one that was so important that like I yelled in the other room, baby, to my wife, obviously, to bring her in the room to tell her about this, and she was just as surprised as I was. But the average amount of negative equity that's getting rolled into deals right now, the average is $7,183. And that's an average. So that means there's a lot of people that are having more than that rolled into the next deals. And here's the thing, that's not even accounting for the negative equity that's coming into the dealership, and then those dealerships are saying, hey, this is way too much. There's nothing we can do here. You got to come up with $10,000, $15,000 and put it on top of this deal, and then we can get you into the next car. Those people are getting turned away. The average right now of someone walking into a dealership and rolling their negative equity that they have in their car right now into their next vehicle is over $7,000. Absolutely insane. If you are upside down $7,000 on your, don't go buy a new car. Pay the freaking car down. $7,000 upside down on these vehicles. And it's when you actually dissect it, it's not surprising. That number blows my mind. I don't like that, right? So it's my mind's exploded when I see that number. But you can really reverse engineer that number and know how we get there, and get there pretty easily. So these people are probably having this car for about 3 years. They bought it 3 years ago. What was happening? Market adjustments, limited production, all this craziness that was going on, and then the car market corrected. The car market crashed. You might not have felt it because MSRPs didn't move, but you were having Dodge Chargers, Dodge Challengers that were selling for $20,000 over MSRP, way up here, and then a year later, they were being sold for 10, 20% under MSRP. So it goes from a $70,000 Charger down to a $40,000 Charger just in a 12-month period. That's a crash. This is what happened. It doesn't matter. We move the goalpost however you want to do it. But just because something goes up like crazy and then it crashes back down doesn't mean that a crash didn't actually occur. Those people that are dealing with this situation right now, that's so funny. That's so funny. That loud car you just heard, that loud car you just heard was a Charger, and it had some ridiculous paint job. That dude right there has negative equity on his car of like $10,000, $20,000 because of this crash. Those are the people that are dealing with this situation of this car market crash that I've talked about for a very long time that absolutely happened, and those are the people that suffered the most in it. They bought a Charger for $70,000. A year later, it was it was being sold new at $40,000. So their Charger that they paid $70,000 for, it was only worth about 30 to 35 grand. And now they might still owe $45,000 on this Charger that at this point is probably only worth $18,000, maybe $20,000. That's the crash that I talk about a lot, and that's the people that are suffering. That's the people who made these unwise decisions buying these cars way over MSRP. That's why we see today average of $7,000 of negative equity being rolled into their next deal. Absolutely insane. And I said at in the intro of this video where we're just seeing really the tip of the iceberg when we're looking at the numbers, seeing record levels of auto loan delinquencies, but the numbers don't report what Bob's Used Cars is seeing, right? So what I'm talking about is like these buy here, pay here dealers, and what's getting hit the most, who's getting hit the most right now in this economy is the lower end of the spectrum, the people who have the worst of the worst credit scores, the ones who can't go to Wells Fargo and get a loan, the ones who can't go to Bank of America and get a loan. They can't even go to Toyota or Ford and get financing through them if they're trying to go buy a brand new car. So they're reduced to being able to only go to these small used car dealers, the ones that you see on the side of the highway that have $9.95 down on the windshield, and they'll end up paying $200, $300 every few weeks to be able to stay in this car. Those are the consumers that are getting hit the hardest, and those are the repos that are going to stack up and stack up and stack up. And if you watch my videos and if you've seen me go to the auction and show you some of the repos, you'll see what I'm talking about, how we're seeing more and more and more of these repos actually enter the system because people just can't afford it. The lower end of the economy is getting absolutely crushed. Gas prices going up, food costs as much as it does, rent, just the ability to live costs so much right now that they are not able to make their payments. They go buy a car, they think they can make the payments. Something hiccups. All they have to do is have one little crisis in their life. And here's the thing. A crisis for someone who only has $400, $500 in their bank account, which from what we've seen from the numbers, most people don't have that anyway, but let's say they do. But if you have an alternator go out, it could cost $400, $500, $600, even for a cheap one. If that happens, it becomes a crisis. Now, for a lot of people that have money, that's nothing. It's just, okay, well, it's just extra maintenance you're going to have to do on your car. Something's going to break, fix it, whatever, move on with their lives. No, but for people that don't have a lot of money, they don't have money saved up, they don't have an emergency fund, they're living paycheck to paycheck to paycheck, a $500 bill is an absolute crisis and one that's going to cause a lot of them to lose their cars. And that's what we're seeing in this economy right now. We have any little hiccup, anything at all. Auto loan delinquencies, way through the roof. Repos, way through the roof. Numbers aren't even showing how bad it is right now. And right now, if you watch any video about the car market, what's the number one word that you're going to hear? Well, you're going to hear affordability. Affordability crisis is what we're going through right now. You even hear it from administration, government, anyone who covers the economy, affordability, no matter what market you're looking at, but even specifically, I'm talking about the car market here, massive, massive problem here in the car market. So what are a lot of banks doing? Well, banks make money writing loans. If the price of the good goes up so high that the bank note, the actual monthly payment that a lot of these banks have to write, are still unobtainable by the consumers that are trying to get the loans, well, what do the banks have to do? Well, they extend the loans out. And now we have Bank of America that is increasing the amount of 84-month loans that they're writing for a lot of these autos that are actually being sold. And here's the problem. You have a consumer that is willing to sign up for these loans, because what do we know? These people who are buying cars, they're not trying to buy cars outright. They're payment buyers. I think it's like 83 or 84% of all people who buy vehicles are payment buyers, and that's a crazy number to me. I don't like debt, so that's crazy to me, but I understand it. If you can't spend $70,000 on a truck, but you still want it, you got to have it, well, you can sign up for $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. That's what's happening right now. And Bank of America, all these other banks, Wells Fargo, this is what we're going to. We're going to where if a consumer has to pay so much for these trucks because the manufacturer charges so much for these trucks, well, for that consumer to actually be able to afford the monthly payment, they have to extend it out. 84 months, now commonplace here in this car market. But here's the problem that arises down the road. And this is how it affects me too as a small used car dealer, is that when you have loans that are extended, at the beginning of loan terms, most of what you're actually paying to this loan is interest. So you're not paying a lot of the principal down on these vehicles. So what happens as we go 2 and 3 years down the road? Well, a lot of this money that's going directly to the vehicle is not really paying it down all that much. It's going to the interest that they have to pay to these banks. So we have a negative equity problem that's going to continue, and it's going to continue to get worse as banks extend these loans. And what that does is that forces people to keep their cars longer. Typically what these payment buyers would do is they want the new bright shiny thing every 2 to 3 years. They would keep buying a new car every 3 years. And this is what keeps a lot of the car market rolling. Velocity of money, buying, selling, trading. This is all how used car dealers make a lot of their money. But if you have people that are locked in their cars because they have so much negative equity, they're not going to be able to trade that car in 3 years because they're going to be upside down $20,000, $25,000, and that's money that they didn't have to begin with. So we can't just roll in that negative equity into the next vehicle because it's just too much. So instead of trading that car in that 3-year period where a lot of these people do, they're going to wait 5, 6 years till they actually get some of this negative equity actually paid down, so they can roll that little bit of negative equity that they're going to have at that point into the next vehicle. This is going to slow down a lot of the velocity of money that moves through the car market, and it's going to take cars out of the system. It's going to take trade-ins out of these auctions, and that's how it affects me, because that's how small used car dealers like myself live and breathe. We need trade-ins to go to these franchise stores, and the franchise stores send to auction. That's what we buy at a wholesale market, and then we mark it up in retail. That's going to hit a lot of these small used car dealers just like myself.